Hello everyone, I'm Joseph Lulka, and as I start my presentation today for Senior SEM, I'd like you all to think about the English language, and specifically, I'd like you to think about its orthographic characteristics, the way the words are spelled, and also its phonetic characteristics, the way the words are pronounced and spoken. And upon observation, one may notice that English is quite peculiar in this way because its orthography is very sporadic and inconsistent, and similarly with its phonetics, it's very inconsistent also in the sense that the way a word is spelled doesn't really relate to how a word is pronounced. And this can be very burdensome for foreigners trying to learn English, just because it's very annoying and inconsistent. But it is a testament to the fact that English, or the success of a language, isn't dependent upon its linguistic characteristics, but really dependent upon social, economic, and political characteristics. And a quote that I like, which explains this, is, "A language is a dialect with an army and a navy." And this is certainly true with English because today, English has become one of the most prominent international languages. And it has done so through its social, economic, and political characteristics, not from its own linguistic characteristics. And this is related to my thesis because I researched the benefits for Anglophone students of learning a foreign language. And when studying bilingualism in the Anglophone world, it is necessary to examine the influence and widespread use of English in the world. This interests me because during my junior year, I hosted an Italian exchange student, and he was most certainly affected by English as an international language because he talked about how influential and widespread it was. And it's also interesting because for my senior year, I will be going on an exchange program, and I felt that this summer was a good opportunity to study bilingualism and examine English in the world today. So I can briefly explain English as an international language because that subject is so immense that it could be, a whole presentation could be devoted just to that. But in general, English within the last half century has become widespread because of, after the World Wars, the increased role of the United States in the world as one of the leading superpowers, globalization, and with the internet, how English is the premier language on the internet. English has become very widespread in trade, economic, and commerce. And with this in mind, an English-speaking American might think, well, why should I learn a foreign language then? Because English is so widespread, what is the benefit? And when observing the state of bilingualism in America, that definitely is the case for a lot of people. Francois Grosjean of Psychology Today says that there's about 20% of Americans are bilingual, but this is mostly immigrants, and it is examined that after a few generations, usually the mother tongue of the immigrant is replaced by English as younger generations assimilate. And Amelia Friedman of The Atlantic notes that only 7% of college students are enrolled in foreign language courses. And in high school and in college, proficiency levels are very low, considering. So overall, in the US, bilingualism is not that widespread, but I will try to present to you why it is beneficial for Anglophone students specifically to learn a foreign language. When I read Lisa Chow's report, she's a reporter for US News, she talked about how bilingual workers can expect higher pay raises, and in the business and economics world, it's very beneficial and it's a very helpful asset because you can make connections with foreign clients, and if you speak their native tongue, it definitely is beneficial to keep clients. And in today's globalized world, that's not very uncommon to be interacting with people all throughout the world as it was like decades ago. So one can expect to be doing work internationally and interacting with people of foreign languages. There's also intellectual and mental health benefits to bilingualism. It's been studied that it improves cognitive skills, it can delay dementia and old age, and also improves adaptability as compared with monolinguals in foreign and new environments. So I will say the project has been very beneficial because I've been able to study it, but the most satisfying aspect of the project is how my research and interactions with people have been justified by my own experiences. When I hosted Francesco, the Italian exchange student, my research about English as an international language was justified because he talked about how in Europe it's very important for younger generations nowadays to learn English if they want to compete in the European workforce. It's the premier language of science and economics, and he talked about how in the EU it's required for all students to learn English in addition to another foreign language, and they even start English in primary school. And this up here is also another interesting experience that helped justify my research. This summer I was able to visit my brother in Germany and also visit Francesco in Siena, in Italy. And if you look on the map, the numbers show the chronological order of where we went. We landed in Zurich, Switzerland, which is a German-speaking area. We went to Freiburg, number 2, and then we went to Strasbourg because we were so close to see France, and then we flew down to Siena. And in all of these cities, 3 different languages, German, French, Italian, the presence of English was definitely observed. In the cities, there was bilingual signs. In the train stations, you could see English, and every business owner had some basic comprehension of English, which is very interesting considering that English is by no means the native language of the populations of any of these countries. And it's just interesting thinking about, as an American, imagining what it would be like to cater to a foreign language that intensely. And then also my brother mentioned he learned German because he studies engineering, and he talks about how if you have a foreign language, if you have knowledge of a foreign language, it's such a valuable asset that it really adds competitiveness to your, for searching for jobs and stuff. And then also, in addition to all this research, I would just say, I volunteered. My project was a volunteer project, so I volunteered at the Franco-American Center, and I was exposed to Franco-American culture. I was able to practice my French, and I would just say, in sum, if one is able to and has the time and the resources, because it is a privilege to be able to devote time to learning a foreign language, because not everyone has the ability to do so, whether it be held back economically or they're too busy. But it is a very useful privilege, especially for my generation, because the workforce is very competitive, the world is very globalized and interconnected. And in addition to all this, knowing a foreign language can open yourself up to a whole other world of literature, history, and culture. And I hope to do so during my senior year. Thank you. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So did you find in your research any information or statistics or data about American students learning a foreign language early in their education versus what is traditionally middle and high school?
Mm-hmm. In my research, I heard a lot that if students learn a language at a younger age, it's much easier to acquire the language as opposed to at a later age, because by the time they're adolescents or older, they've already developed an English mindset, so it's harder to acquire the language. But I know that it's not a very common practice in the US.
What language should students learn other than English?
I would say it really depends on the field of study that a student is seeking to go into, because it really depends. You can, whether it be business, engineering, real estate, say like if it's real estate, you know, maybe learn, I hear like there's a demand for people to have Spanish speaking skills just because of the widespread presence of Spanish. It really depends. It's not like I can make a sweeping statement saying everyone should learn Mandarin or something, or this language. It really depends, especially if you're working in a business that's big enough to collaborate with people of different countries. So, is that all?